of the City of Gary, providing for a hearing and public comments on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Tonight, I'm joined by my colleagues, First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, our Third District Council woman, Councilwoman Mary Brown, Gary, providing for a hearing and public comments on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, attorney. Our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown, Gary, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, attorney. Our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown, Gary, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, attorney. Our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown, Gary, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown, providing for a hearing and public comment on the transfer and sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA. Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Tonight, we are joined by my colleagues, men of the First District Councilman and President of the Gary Common Council, Councilman William Godwin, our Second District Councilman, Councilman Cozy Witherspoon, our Third District Council woman, at this time, Mary Brown,
Two for one, rehab two, get one program whereby individuals could, rehab houses and these are particularly some of the GUEA lots, as well as other city parcels that we already do own outside of the GUEA group. That we're essentially trying to get back on the tax rolls and back in livable and habitable condition. The other program would be the side lot program, where individuals who live adjacent to a property would be able to have that property transferred to them, for purposes of basically land assemblage. Most of the time, a lot of the times, I should say, these properties they've already tended to for several years. They've kept up the property despite the fact they didn't own it. And, we would like to get those properties back on the tax rolls and ensure that those neighborhoods are still thriving, and those legacy residents have that opportunity to take advantage of those parcels.
Mr. Poe.
Yes.
Yeah, Cozy Weatherspoon. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good. Just have a question. The colors that are in the spreadsheet, what are those colors indicating as it relates to the properties?
1 second. Let me try and pull that up. Are you looking at the one that Councilwoman Atkins had just circulated, or the other one?
I'm looking at one that I pulled
outside
up
of
on
the
GUEA
hold
on, let me
group.
see what she just said.
That's the same document.
That we're essentially trying to get back on the tax rolls and back in
Yeah, what are those colors?
habitable
What do they
condition.
indicate?
The other,
I
the other
believe
program would be the side lot program,
like the
where
tannish
individuals
yellow
who live
that's indicated
adjacent
for the
to a
rehab
property
one, get two
would be able
program, and
to
there's the side lot program,
have that
which are
property
white,
transferred
and there's a
to
different
them,
color that are
I believe, for purposes of
those are
basically
going to
land
be
assemblage.
outright
Most of the time,
purchases that this
a lot of the time,
city's going to be
these
selling
properties
those
they've already
properties,
tended to
and
for
RDC is going
several
to be
years.
selling
They've
those
kept
properties
up the
outside of the
property
program.
and I think the differences between the two are the areas in which they're located, if I'm not mistaken.
It's separated by zip code, attorney.
Zip code. Okay, that would make sense.
And I think I can shed a little bit of extra light on that too. I can't recall the pink and orange, the pinkish orange tint, but the blue, I believe there's a plan to donate that to 21st Century. I think that was the purpose for that one. And the green is within the Ralph's Food area, like the area where that was formerly known as Ralph's Food. So they're in that area, just so you know.
Well, what is it specifically for the one that's 7100 West Fifth Avenue? I know that's a long, huge wooded area. What's going on there?
That is in. I cannot recall what that's for. I'm assuming that would probably be best answered by Mr. Bittner, because Miami and the West Fifth Avenue are nowhere near each other, and nor is the Martin Luther King. Those just might be the miscellaneous groupings then.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the only question that I have is when do we expect the next set of properties to come in front of the body?
That
There
is
was
a great.
initially a total of what, 6 something, I believe?
I believe so. I don't remember the total number, but yeah, there are several. That is a very, very good question. I really don't want to gander a guess. I would have to probably just refer that one to Director Bittner.
So I do have one question. So all of these properties, they are all set and ready to go to individuals that we have before us?
As far as the rehab one get to and the side lot, I know that we have put, I know we've put information out about those. I know we've gotten some responses. And so, for example, the side lot, I'm not 100% sure if all of those are now spoken for or if all of those are just being offered at this time until, and they're obviously being, in limbo until we get approval from the council. But the rehab one get two, I think the way that program works is it's, there are a number of people that have applied. They kind of rank which ones they want, by, I want this one. If I can't get that one, I want this one, and so forth. So I think once we have the green light to disperse those properties, then we would engage the applicants and be able to disperse those accordingly.
So, and with the side lot, if you have individuals that is living next to these side lots and they're not interested in getting the lot attached to their property or, taking on their responsibility, what is the plan to do with those? Will you come back and petition to sell them, or what will happen there?
That those could either be sold. They may, and to be honest, they may be the ones that are being the ones that are already spoken for. That would definitely be an attorney or a Director Bittner. I know he was on earlier because he was sending me text messages during the I got a text message from him during the towing committee meeting. I think he was thinking it was that other meeting. This meeting was supposed to start earlier. So
correct. We apologize for that.
Yeah, and you could thank me for being long-winded in the towing committee meeting for that. I apologize. But nevertheless, I can get that confirmation from him. I'll try and before this meeting's over, I'll text him now to see what if he could either jump back on or if he can answer that question if he's unavailable.
Okay, well, I can get it at the third and final. That's fine. Is there any other questions by anyone? Okay. All right, I'll move this to third and final at the next council meeting. We did have another agenda item that I wanted to discuss. That was about concerns about contractors being licensed. I don't know if we have the parties all on to discuss it, or if you are prepared to discuss about how we can work with contractors with the transfer of license to contractors when the president of the license may have expired or something, but the business is still operating. I don't know if you're prepared to handle it tonight, or some other individual going to be on to speak on this. Attorney Poe?
I can handle it as best as I can. I was told that there was a potential amendment, but I haven't received that yet. So I can't speak to the new amendment. I did respond to an email stating that there was proposal, but I just stated, well, there was nothing attached. I still need the information. So I don't know if I believe Councilman Godwin or President Godwin, if he has any information as to the proposed amendment to that, I might be able to speak to that. But as of right now, I don't have that information.
I would just quickly say, and I think Attorney Williams may be able to add even more light, is that basically we're looking at making it time sensitive for folks who are already licensed here. Let's say you were the vice president of a company, the president dies, sells the company, moves away, what have you, and you assume their role. I shouldn't say sells the company, but maybe leaves the company. You assume their role, and you've been operating for 10 years or more, then you would essentially, I don't know if grandfathered is the best way, but you would assume their role. You'd be able to move forward with that contractor's license. Attorney Williams, you want to correct any of my errors?
Nope, you summed it up perfectly.
All right,
Thank you. Yep, that's it.
Thank you. So we're waiting to get those changes in amended form, and then we can consider that.
Okay. If there's nothing else,
As I did Mr. Chair, I did receive a response from Director Bittner. He did say that he believes that all the side lot program properties are currently claimed and waiting for processing. As far as the 2-for-1, no, those are not yet, but we essentially want to be able to offer those out for the 2-for-1 program.
Okay.
And as far as the third and final, is that third and final going, we had requested October 5th. Is that going to be held on October 5th?
Unless there's some reason that we need to bring it back to committee, I'll leave that up to my colleague for discussion tonight.
Let me ask one question. I'm sensitive about transferring. This will be my first time, I think, transferring property to redevelopment, given recent events. When you do your deeds for these transfers, tell us about that. What's the process?
Well, with these particular properties, we are putting reversionary language in them. For example, with the 2-for-1 program or the 1-for-2 program, if they don't meet certain timelines and certain milestones, there is reversionary language directly in the deed. We include the purchase agreement or the transfer agreement as an exhibit that's referenced and record that with them. We essentially are making sure that the city's best protected in engaging in these programs. I'm sorry, say that again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying that, AJ. Thought I muted myself. Sorry about that. I think Brewer is unmuted, and that's why you heard me over. You overheard me. Sorry about that.
No, you was unmuted. Yeah.
Please proceed. I'm sorry.
But yes, as far as the process for the deeds, once we have an agreement in place, we have an applicant that's ready and willing and has demonstrated the ability to at least the initial ability and has met all of the qualifications. We would prepare the deed, internally within the law department. It's reviewed. We make sure that the legal descriptions match up. We include the reversionary language and the purchase agreement or the transfer agreement, as the exhibit that lays out all of the obligations of the actual applicant and the transferee.
And you have to get appraisals on all of these, or you can do private sale after, 30 days or so many days?
Yes, yeah. That's correct. We don't have to get yeah.
It looks like Mr. Bittner's wants to chime in.
So for anything under, for a budding landowner, which is the side lot program, because side lot program sounds a lot better than the state statute of a budding landowner offering. To be honest, I believe, if I remember off the top of my head, I think it's anything that's under $6,000 doesn't require an appraisal, and anything below 10,000 only requires one appraisal. So if an appraiser says, let's say the assessed value is $20,000, and an appraiser says it's worth $9,000, then we only need one appraisal and then a second opinion by a staff member who's qualified to make those judgments.
So for the Edna Rehab 1 Get 2, that's not sideline. So those would have to have the 2 appraisals? No,
because those were offered through the new opportunity area legislation. So any area for residential properties that are, and it was a pilot program that was actually re-up, is original 3-year pilot program that was re-up by the legislature last year, that any of those areas within the city that were designated within new opportunity areas in the original 2017, which we included in the resolution for the offering for the Edna Fix 1 Get 2, can be offered at no price, because it's been determined that based on several criteria, being vacant, abandoned, tax delinquency, and overall assessed value, that there's no feasible way to sell them at market rate. that you can offer them in essence at any discounted price that you see fit in order to facilitate them getting back into the private sector and getting into tax productive use.
Thank you. Attorney Williams, putting you on the spot here, but is there a problem should a council person offer an amendment to this ordinance that would put in writing some stipulations around making sure policy is law internally? Like if we say, you know, there must be an appraisal or require anything over and beyond what the statute says, which is the minimum.
No, I don't think so. As long as you're not directly infringing on the executive branch's authority, it is the council who is charged with setting the rules and laws of which the city will be governed under. So that recommendation, I do not think crossed that threshold.
Okay, and ensuring, just noting that, you know, all these properties must have a reversionary clause with the language that Attorney Pohl talked about in it. Because if I vote for this, I want to be able to say that while I could not control what they did, I didn't transfer it without setting out very clear expectations for how it would go down.
I don't think any of those requirements cross the threshold.
Thank you. Attorney Pohl, what do you think? I'm not saying that because I would disagree with Attorney Williams. I just recognize that there could be disagreement, and I know you also represent redevelopment.
Yeah, I wouldn't see necessarily the need for it. You know, we're following we're following what the state statutes provided. You know,
but the state statute doesn't require a reversionary clause, obviously, right?
No, that it does not. You know, obviously there and you know, there are certain instances where we may not require a reversionary clause for, you know, getting rid of other properties that are not part of the GUEA, this grouping here. But obviously, you know, in setting out the parameters for what our objectives are, that's going to be something we're just going to want in there. You know, and really just kind of looking at some of the pitfalls from things that have occurred, you know, in the past with certain, the GUEA being, a prime example of it. There are things that went wrong there, and you have to learn from your mistakes. So, you know, as a commission, the redevelopment commission, has to really do what it can to protect its interests and to protect the interests of the city. So, I mean, that's just something that we've taken to, and that's something that, Director Bittner's really made sure to make a point of.
Thank you. And just one last question. Have all the commissioners, I know you just seated a new person, Ms. Sharon Chambers, have all of them gotten the state bond requirement, met the state bonding requirement that's in the statute for members of redevelopment commissions?
I believe they did. I'm not, I would have to double check. I know that the conversation came up a while ago, and I can't recall exactly what happened with that.
No, the answer is yes. We re-upped with, I forget the name of the insurance company. I think it's the one that may actually be on Lake Street.
Yeah.
Haywood
and Fleming.
Yeah.
Correct.
So now, and same will be the case for any new members, right? Because you just appointed a new member last week. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'd have to double check to see if we had transferred that over, or if she had obtained it on her own, or if she had obtained it before joining. Needless to say, it's definitely on. I'm gonna check into it.
And who would sign these deeds? So when you transfer these properties to other entities or people, who would be charged with signing the deed? And is there a resolution required from the members of the commission to authorize someone to sign such deed?
That's a great question, and yes, there's a resolution that authorizes it authorizes the executive of the executive director of the redevelopment department, or the attorney representing the redevelopment commission to sign off on those deeds. And I believe that's it. Or does the president also sign? I'm trying to remember now. I think it's just I think the resolution authorizes the executive.
Right. It either authorizes Rodney or myself to do so. It's a resolution with the purchase agreement that's referenced in the resolution itself. And if it's, in these cases, they won't, for side lots, they won't have development agreements, but depending on the complexity, there'll be, or if there's any, typically it has a development agreement if there's requested any type of financial incentives through the city, because that'll require, not only a sign off by the redevelopment commission, but also potentially the city council or Gary Sanitary District. So the development agreement is really, in essence, the codification and the various parties that need to sign off on it, whereas a simple purchase agreement typically is only handled by the redevelopment commission, because there's not any additional requirements or requests or approvals needed from other city boards.
Thank you.
Is Councilman Brewer muted?
Thank you.
I heard you
I was
talking
just asking, was everyone comfortable with the October 5th moving forward, third and final, so that way they can get the notices out for a public hearing? Okay.
So they have to wait till October 5th. We can't do it on the 7th next week?
It's a 30-day notice for the,
Okay.
with the AG. They were like, most public hearings, as you guys know, are a 10-day notice, but the agreement to the AG came up within 2014, said a 30-day notice. So that's the reason for the gap.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Everyone have a good night. We do have a couple more meetings tonight. We'll move to the next one. We'll end this one. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Councilwoman Ty Atkins, Vice President of the Gary Common Council and also the representative of the 4th District. I am the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and I am opening the committee at 7:04 on Tuesday, August the 31st. First, just wanted to give an apology to the public. We are running an hour behind, and that's because we had a number of meetings prior to this that took us back, and so we extend our apologies for that. Joining me tonight are my following colleagues: President of the Gary Common Council and Representative of the 1st District, Councilman William Godwin; Councilman of the 2nd District, Councilman Cozy Weatherspoon; Councilman at Large, Ron Brewer, Parliamentarian of the Gary Common Council; and also Councilwoman Mary Brown, Representative of the 3rd District. We also have joining us tonight our Attorney Brinzer Williams, as well as representatives from the administration, Ms. Attorney Colvin, I should say, and also our controller, Mr. Malik Harper. On our agenda tonight, we have 3 ordinances specific for Ways and Means. Those CPO numbers are CPO 2021-57, 2021-60, and 2021-61. So I'm going to go in that order. CPO 2021-57, an ordinance establishing a budget in Fund 877 LDA, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, and Mr. Malik Harper, our City Controller. But I believe, Attorney Coleman, you're going to give the overview for this one, correct?
I am.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay. This ordinance 2021-57 establishes a budget in Fund 877, which is the LDA. If you recall, some years ago, the City of Gary agreed to participate in the funding of, I think it was Westlake, that comes through RDA. The RDA payment that is made by the city is about $3 million. Those dollars are actually intercepted directly out of our LDA funds on June 30th. In 2020 and in 2021, there was a shortfall in the LDA funds at the point when they did the intercept. So the dollars, of course, were collected, but they just weren't there on that particular date. Mm-hmm. So we have to make the direct payment to RDA of those funds. So what we've done in this ordinance is to establish a budget so that we can actually make that payment.
Attorney Coleman, is there a penalty when that happens?
No, we had to pay it. Actually, we had to pay it by the end of August. So we had to actually go ahead and make the payment. So this is a retroactive ordinance.
Mm-hmm. And so when we have that shortfall, what do we do? Just find the money from general fund?
It's usually already in the RDA, already in the LDA. I don't think, I'm not aware that it has ever been a shortfall before. I think it was because of COVID and the casinos being closed. So in this case, the dollars were actually collected after June 30th. So the dollars are in the LDA fund. They just weren't there on June 30th.
Okay. And so Fund 877 is only used for that.
Pardon me?
I said, and this fund is only used for that collection of payment and then payout by that date.
This is a appropriation directly in the LDA fund. So the LDA fund can be used for any purpose.
Anything. Okay. Okay. For the record, I would like to acknowledge that our colleague, Councilman Dwight Williams of the 6th District, has joined the meeting tonight. Colleagues, are there any questions for Attorney Colvin related to CPO 2021-57?
Not really a comment, just a statement. I don't think we will have that problem with the shortfall no time soon with the new casino up. Looks like revenues are really coming in pretty well. So I don't think this might be the last time for a long time that we deal with this issue.
Right. I don't recall it happening before. So you're probably right, Councilman.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we're good to go on this one. Thank you, Attorney Colvin. So if there's no other questions, we're going to move right along. Our next CPO on the agenda for tonight is CPO 2021-60, An ordinance approving a transfer of funds from Fund 872, which is the will exercise surtax, to Fund 484 Community Crossings Grant, and establishing appropriations. This ordinance, of course, is sponsored by our Mayor Jerome Prince, as well as our City Controller, Mr. Malik Harper. But I know that Attorney Colvin is also going to grace us with the overview tonight.
I certainly will. I think you are aware of the fact that for the last, I know, 3 or 4 years, it may have been before that, the city of Gary has been participating in the Community Crossings Grant from the state of Indiana, where we can receive up to $1 million and have it matched by NDOT. And we, the streets or the roads that we have paved, we can do paving with this money. And the streets or roads that we have paved have been designated, or we actually are using a survey that had been done, I think it's about 3 or 4 years ago, where a citywide assessment was done of all streets. And slowly but surely, we have been hitting those streets that are in that particular assessment that was done by Robinson Engineering. What we're doing this year is there's some paving going on right now, which should be completed in October. We're moving dollars from the Fund 872 to the Community Crossings Grant Fund so that we can put our matching dollars in place with the dollars that we have already received from NDOT, so that we can make payment to the vendor that's doing the contractor, which is Milestone. That's the contractor's name that is doing the paving work. I sent over, and I wasn't sure who I should probably have sent to all council members, but I sent over the actual streets that are actually being paved. And you, I think, Councilwoman Atkins, you received that from me, but I can send it to everyone just so you'll know. We weren't able to do as many streets this year, but we intend to do more, of course, as we go along now that we have other funds that we can use.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Chairlady.
Yes, Councilman Witherspoon.
Thank you. I have a question for Ms. Colvin. Ms. Colvin, did you say there was a list that was put together from a survey from 4 years ago?
I can't say if it's 4 years old, but it's old. I'll say maybe from 2018, maybe. This is something that had been done by the previous administration, where all the streets in the city were assessed and graded to determine, where they were in terms of how badly paving was needed, et cetera. And so what has been happening over the last 3 years or so, the paving work for this grant has been done based on that assessment. So as we click off or check off a paving from one street or another, we go to the next one on the list. I think the council members, you may remember this list from before. So we're still using that list.
Okay, and one other question. The company that you're using now, will this be their first time paving? Because, I haven't heard of them. Normally it's been Reith Riley. Will this be a first for this company?
I think last year we had Walsh and Kelly. Yeah. We've had Reith Riley. Milestone is an Indianapolis company. They won the bid.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilwoman Brown?
There is
you're on mute.
Okay. There is a street in my district that I have been trying to get paved for the last 4 years on West 20th Place. It's a small section, and it was on the list to be paved, but I didn't see it on your list. It was like 2081 West 20th Place. I have to get the exact address, but okay. It's a small area, and those people they've been asking for paving for so long. Their street is so bad. So,
I will check to see where that is, Councilwoman.
okay,
On the
please.
list, and I can let you know.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Colvin, one other question I have also. I noticed with Reith Riley last time, I had to kind of get involved with this. They do not put out the necessary safety apparatuses to let the traffic know that, that the road is going to change or there's construction going on. I noticed that on 21st Avenue today, going west on 21st, I realized that there's going to be some paving, but there was no indication that there was a change in surface or anything such as that. So could you check with that company or have someone check with that company to make sure that they're putting out the necessary safety equipment, warning signs, and things of that nature?
I certainly will, sir.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Let's make sure we address the chair before we speak. Thank you, President Godwin.
Thank you. Attorney Colvin, I wanted to ask about the crack ceiling. One of the things it seems that we have not been doing enough of is making sure that once we do all this paving, that we protect it and preserve it so that we'll get the longevity out of it. Because often you'll see streets get paved and 3 to 4 years in, it's like, you're heading really quickly back to needing to be paved again. So are we budgeting crack sealing in this? Or if not, how do we find the funds somewhere to do that so that we're getting our value from all of these efforts?
In this particular grant, that's not a part of it. What I think we might be able to do, sir, is when we, I'll say, make the exchange between general fund dollars and ARPA money, we may very well be able to put out a bid for crack ceiling.
Okay. I hope that we're, doing that. And I know Councilman Brewer has often been big on this, is ensuring that we have people out there monitoring from Public Works to make sure that work is being, and this is Councilman Weatherspoon's point too, that work is being done properly. You hear these various things. I'm by no means a paving expert, but you certainly hear folks say that companies come here and do work with a lot less care and concern than they do in other communities. And there's a question of quality. And so if we're expending these dollars, we really want to make sure someone is out there to ensure that best practices are being followed so that we get the bang for our buck.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam
Thank you,
Chair,
Mr. President. Councilman Brewer?
both of those been excellent points made by Councilman Godwin and Councilman Weatherspoon. We definitely need someone out there monitoring the streets. I know we're not doing a lot of paving like we normally do, but we have had a monitor to make sure that we're getting the right grade, a mill put down. It looks pretty thin right now. I don't know what we have settled for to get put down or what we've been getting in the past also too. So I think that's something that we need to monitor. Councilman Weatherspoon brought up something, and I did receive some phone calls about it, about when, especially our funeral homes. I think we need to bring them into the conversation when we're getting ready to pave master streets, especially main thoroughfares. So we don't want, a funeral procession going down the street where we just tore up, we're getting ready to pave, and there's no markers out and things of that nature. But they should know about the paving. I think this is one instance that we need to bring this type of business into the conversation, letting them know what we're doing in the city and making them aware. But definitely there should be some type of signage out, not just no parking signs, little small signs on the side of the street, but to let people know you're in a work zone, the streets are being resurfaced or something of that nature should be put up. It's been talked about the crack ceiling already. It's been talked about that, but I want to talk about far as next year's paving. You talked about we're going to do more next year. What are we collecting right now in the wheel tax?
I can't tell you how much is in it now, Councilman. I have to defer to Mr. Harper, and I don't know if he knows that number off the top of his head, but he can certainly get back to you.
Okay. And also, okay, yeah.
Attorney Colvin,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a concern about the striping. And we talked about it last year, and a lot of the striping was not done. It still has not been done. And if you're driving down certain streets at night, you can see absolutely nothing. So we need to make sure this year that we get that striping done.
Okay. I will bring all of this to the attention of the Public Works Department so that they can make sure that these issues are addressed.
Attorney Colvin, I just have one question. Is there only certain things that we could utilize the money from the will?
There is already money in this particular fund. We just needed to move $390,000 more in cash to make the contract total. And you'll see the attachment for the budget itself does not match the cash in the ordinance itself because we already had appropriations in this budget. We just need to increase it so that the cash and the appropriations match.
So the total of this is how much is the total?
The amount of the contract is the $1.5 million or 596.
All right, I know that's what we normally do, something like that.
Right.
Okay, all right, that number scared me. Thank you.
Okay.
And you also got another ordinance coming up, 1 point something million
Oh,
from
okay.
that same fund. So,
All right.
Madam Chair,
yes, Mr. Harper.
I will provide you with that information by Thursday via email.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Any other council members for any comments, questions? Perfect. We are going to move right along. So the last CPO that we have for discussion is CPO 2021-61, an ordinance approving the transfer of funds from Fund, once again, 872 to Fund 448, which is the Will Tax Road Fund. Attorney Coleman?
Yes, this fund 448, was established for the purpose of handling the debt service payments that the city has in connection with a bond that was issued in 2017. And what we're doing here is moving appropriations and dollars here to make sure that we're able to make bond payments.
Madam Chair.
You said the bond was established in 2017 or 18?
17. This is
17.
a will revenue bond of 2017.
Okay, Councilman Brewer.
So how much longer do we have left on this repayment?
I believe this is I don't want to say, I have to check. I was getting ready to say a 5-year, but I don't want to say that and it's incorrect. So let me check for sure.
Okay. And I don't know if you can answer this tonight. Is it might be the pleasure of the administration to redo another bond where we can hit a mass number of streets inside the city?
That's something that can be considered.
Okay.
That's certainly a way that we can do more, like you said.
Yes.
So
Okay.
probably use ARPA as well as do that strategy as well together.
Yeah, well, ARPA might do quite a bit though. Yeah. Okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Any other council members, comments? Discussion? Very good. So all three of these were moved to third and final at our next council meeting, which will be this upcoming Tuesday, September already, September the 7th at 6 p.m. That's it. All right, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining, and we will adjourn this meeting and get ready for our finance meeting, which will be the last one.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, good evening. This is the Finance Committee meeting for, is today Tuesday?
It is Tuesday.
Yeah, okay, August 31st. And on this evening's agenda are three ordinances, CPO 2021-58, 59, and 2021-62. Present this evening is Councilman Ron Brewer, Councilman at Large, Councilman Gloria Slay, Councilman at Large, Ty Atkins, Councilwoman from the 4th District, Attorney Renja Williams, our legal advisor, Cozy Weatherspoon, our councilman from the 2nd District, and our council president, Mr. William Godwin, and Dwight Williams, our councilman from the 6th District. I think that's it. And then Arlene Colvin. So we will begin with, we'll take these ordinances in the order that they appear on the agenda. CPO 2021-58, which is an ordinance authorizing a temporary interfund loan between the city of Gary and sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince and Malik Harper, City Controller. CPO 2021-59, an ordinance approving subsidies for the general fund during calendar year 2021, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince and Malik Harper, City Controller. And CPO 2021-62, an ordinance accepting a donation from Horizon Bank to be used to purchase school supplies for the first responders event, sponsored by Dwight Williams, 6th District Mayor Jerome Prince, and Malik Harper, City Controller. So we will begin with CPO 2021-58. Mr. Harper.
I'm gonna do 58 and 59.
Okay, thank you, Arlene.
Okay. CPO 2021-58 is an ordinance authorizing a temporary loan between the entire city of Gary, including the pension funds. And once we get the dollars, then we do a interfund loan to the pension funds in order to actually make their payments. So we borrowed dollars in May, $3 million for the pension fund, and a temporary loan in the amount of 1.5 million was made to the police pension fund, and 1.5 million was made to the fire pension fund. So this ordinance authorizes this particular transaction. It just slipped through the cracks in terms of sending it, getting it approved, because I had left the controller's office and I had forgotten that this still needed to be done. So I apologize to the council for that.
Okay. So it should have been done, but you weren't
In
here
May.
to do it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, anybody have any questions? No? No questions? Okay. Very good. Then we'll move along to CPO 2021-59, which is an ordinance approving subsidies for the general fund.
This ordinance 2021-59 is an ordinance that transfers revenues from our various sources that we've identified that will subsidize the general fund from those funds to the general fund. So we, on a yearly basis, look at our estimated revenue and include tax dollars. We include how much we're going to use for casino money, how much we're going to use from seated, how much we're going to use from the LDA, all to support the general fund budget for the year. This ordinance authorizes those subsidies that must occur in order for us to have all of the revenue that we need in order to support our budget, and in this case, the 2021 budget. So we'll be transferring $6,400,000 to the general fund from 877 LDA, which is a local development agreement account. We'll be transferring $1,200,000 from the seated fund, and we'll be transferring $6 million from the wagering account. So this will occur during the year as we need it to meet payroll or whatever our expenses might be.
So you'll do it as you go along.
Yes.
Okay,
But
anybody
this
have
is the maximum amount of money that we actually are authorized to subsidize from based on our budget that we submitted to the state back when we passed the budget last year.
Okay, any questions or comments? Anybody?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
yes, just one comment for Attorney Coven. Just want to make sure that we don't have anyone that was on a grant that was brought on and getting paid out of that grant, and that grant has expired, and we're still paying them out the general fund. I know we ran into some problems years back with that. I want to make sure we're not running into that situation again, where people was brought on a grant, the grant has expired, and now we're basically keeping them on the general fund budget now.
I will ask Mr. Harper to please look into that to verify that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
how much money do we have remaining in the seated and LDA funds respectively?
I know in seated, we have about 1.8 million.
That's after the 3 million?
After the
Attorney Copeland sent an update to this amendment to this
Oh, I'm looking
ordinance
at the wrong. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so check your
okay.
email
Okay.
from Saturday.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I forgot to mention that.
So I did get that email. I said, I was at Councilwoman Atkins' wonderful event. And I said, wow, Attorney Coven is working on the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I'm sure that's anything unusual, but I'm going to scroll back here and take a look. Let's see here.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no, okay, so wait a minute. 1.2 million is coming out of the seated, is that
Seated.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
Can you, number one, say more about the nature of the seated dollars? And then what is remaining after the 1.2 million is removed from it and goes to the general fund?
So the seeded dollars are the county economic development income tax. That's what that stands for. But generally, you can use it for any governmental purpose. So what generally happens is these dollars are used to subsidize the general fund. Once this 1.2 million is paid out, there'll be about 1.8 million left.
Okay. And that comes out of the income tax, the county income
yes.
tax.
Yes.
Okay. And the LDA, that's obviously casino.
Right.
And so you're moving 6.4 million from the casino fund to the general fund.
Right.
And what will be the balance there after that?
I will have to get back to you, and I ask Mr. Harper to get that number for you.
Okay. And the same question for the wagering, 277. Can you say more about what that is?
The wagering, well, the LDA comes directly to the city.
Right.
The wagering is the state dollars. After they pay over their admissions tax, this is our portion that comes back to us.
This is our allotment that comes from the state.
Yes.
Okay, which is a percentage, and that's outside of the LDA agreement. That's just a standard agreement with the state.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like, if you can, if you give some, I'd like to learn as much as I can about these different funds. So if you could just, whatever data is out there, websites, links about these particular ones, how they work, what the rules are, the formulas, et cetera, I'd be interested in, just from my own knowledge, to know more about that. And lastly, I think on a call that we had related to ARPA, and we ended up talking about the LDA in that call, but knowing more about how we measure admission, because a few of us, less than 5 for the record, are having a conversation about our having gone to the casino to have dinner, and some people were ID'd and others weren't. And so I don't know whether when you come in and you give them your driver's license, is that how they keep count? Or is there some other metric? Because if that's the metric by which we're receiving these LDA dollars, then we want to make sure that it's being adequately and consistently done, because obviously they have an interest in not necessarily giving a high number if it's going to cost them money. But I know I have gone in there before and not been ID'd, and I've seen others. So I'm just curious about how we verify.
Okay, I'll see what I can find out about that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make one comment for Mr. Harper. So Mr. Harper, when you give us that number in terms of the balance for the LDA that President Godwin, I just want to make sure, and I could be overthinking this, that we factor in the changes or the movements that we just talked about in Ways and Means as well. Like 57, and I think the other one we had another one that might have had some dealings with 877.
The wheel tax.
No, I think it was LDA. Am I thinking too
payment,
hard?
like the 650,000, the payment for the shortfall?
That's right. That was on 2021-57, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's just paying out, and then these two are transferring. Okay. So I might have overthought that one, my bad. So just let us know what the balance is. Sorry, Mr. Harper. Yes, ma'am.
No problem, Madam Chair. I will provide this information by Thursday, probably Thursday by noon. Okay. Unmute.
Okay, 2021-62, an ordinance accepting a donation from Horizon Bank to be used to purchase school supplies for the first responders event. Was that, I don't know who was supposed to get that. Was it the fireman or policeman or anybody know?
This is Councilman Williams involved in this.
Oh, it's
yeah, that was supposed to be for school supplies for the first responder event, which got rained out. And now it's been scheduled for the 25th. It's no longer known as the first responder event. It is the Fall Fest that will be held at the Glen Theater, and those food supplies will be given out.
okay, so it's no longer the first responder event.
No.
Okay. All right. All right. Anybody have any questions about that?
Not so much of a question, Madam Chair. I just want to, maybe it is a question, but is this going to be our new norm as a council, as we have gifts come in and things of that nature? Are we going to do them in ordinance form and present for the council, and we all go through this procedure? I just want to make sure we're on the same page of how we're doing things.
What? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I hope it is the new norm. And here's why I say this. You know, I know historically it's been that you offer the motion on the floor,
right,
we receive it, it's placed, we vote on it, and it's placed in the minutes. I think we all know that it is extremely difficult in terms of record keeping, even on more substantive matters, trying to find zoning changes, all kinds of things. I think that this is an appropriate way to make sure we formally have a record in writing of what we are doing. And that secondly, it will be easy to find these things and not having to try to remember what day the meeting was and go back to the minutes that may or may not cover it. So I know that Councilman Moore and I were having a discussion about whether it should be a resolution or an ordinance. I think it should be an ordinance, because when we vote, we're making a law. It's a legal activity of our receiving, not just a nice endeavor, thank you for giving us the money. It is a act, right? A legal act for us to receive these funds, and so I think an ordinance is the appropriate way to formally do that. So I like the idea of doing it, but I'm sure others may have other opinions.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Attorney Lay.
I certainly agree with what Mr. Godwin just said. I only had one further question, though. There does not appear to be any kind of letter stating what the money is supposed to be used for. In other words, the donor indicates in some memo or some way what you can use the money for. We have an ordinance now saying first responder. Now we're calling it something else.
Yeah.
But when I looked at the ordinance itself, there's nothing attached to it that says this is how we're supposed to use the money. Now, Mr. Harper, as I understand it, has the $500. Was it accompanied with a letter or something, Mr. Harper?
No, it was not. It's really just a check that Councilman Williams dropped off to us. We went through a few hoops trying to figure out exactly the right process of how to do this. And what we determined was to get it deposited and then get it appropriated through council. Now, what you're looking for is probably a budget sheet to break out exactly how and where the dollars should be appropriated to.
Yeah, the donor, in other words, can put restrictions on dollars that they provide. In some cases, they can give you the money in general, and then the decision can be made, of course, by the council. But I agree we should do it by ordinance. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a good idea. And we need to be consistent with what we're doing, so the ordinance will make it. But I don't like it where it says supplies for the first responder. Again, if Mr. Williams, of course, went to Horizon and got the money, and that's what he told them they were going to use it for, I don't have any problem. But they should give us a memo or something stating how we're to spend their $500. In other words, Mr. Williams can't tell us, they should tell us. Again, I don't doubt that's what he asked them to get the money for. I'm not questioning that. But just in the future, when we go back and we look, there's no record from them stating what the money can be used for. It seems to be a donation without any restriction. And my other question, who buys the supplies?
Well, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Harper.
In response to Councilman Lay's request, I can reach out to Horizon Bank and see if we can get some sort of a letter or restrictions or whatever we need to suffice to this donation.
Well, who buys the supplies? How is that done?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Williams.
but I will be purchasing the supplies from other sources. But I can also reach out to Horizon Bank and get the dollars will be used only for.
Again, I don't want to make it complicated, but you're going to purchase supplies, I guess, office supply. How does that get through our records?
Mr. Attorney Lay, what we have done, and in the past, is when we've been given these donations, we have stated, whomever the donor was, stated specifically what the donations were for.
Right.
So in this case, they don't do that. They just say for, first responders. So
well,
I don't know.
I'm sorry, they really don't say that. I'm not questioning that any longer. I think Mr. Harper has cleared that up. But this is not a major, excuse me, amount of money. But now Mr. Williams is going to take something and go somewhere and purchase something. How does that get back into our system?
A receipt will be brought back to Mr. Harper for purchase of the goods.
And you will spend exactly what?